or do they? Are they ready?
All right. I'm going to start recording in 5, 4, 3, 2. Boom. We are live. Welcome to the inaugural J and J podcast. Your average J is here.
This is Jay, or rather, Jeremy Francois.
And this is J, Justin Ruiz. So we came up with this thing years ago, many, many moons. And finally, Jay and I, the other Jay, we finally decided to just capitalize on it. Hopefully we do this maybe bi-weekly or monthly, but main point of this is just to kind of give everyone a break, man. A break from society. Everyone sucks. We just need
Yeah.
to turn off our brains once in a while and talk about something, because the best time to talk about something is when your brain's off. It's when the best ideas happen. It's when, friendships are made and countries are born and religions topple. It's the perfect marriage of beauty and chaos.
That's exactly right. Like that, I was like, I could have said a bit better myself. Yeah, exactly what you said. We just gotta talk about the nonsense this world is in. We all
Yeah,
know we're in a pandemic. Still, it's not gone, and we got the G virus still out there. Whoa, the Delta virus now. Is
we
it
have.
just the Delta virus?
I'm pretty sure at this point there's at least 75 different versions of COVID that
Oh
will
yeah,
immediately change your life on impact. One of them I heard actually turns you into a podcaster, so we might have got that one. Um,
yeah. I actually got COVID back in November, so it's probably was for morphing me into this podcaster.
mm,
And
mm.
because we've been talking about, hey, we got to do this, and then you moved, then we're like, how are we gonna do this? And then just got COVID, and then it was like, yo, let's start doing this.
That totally makes sense. I believe that. I'm not a
That's
scientist, but I think the data's there. So, like we keep saying, this is something that we've been talking about for years at this point. And honestly, I think it's a pride and ego thing. I think we're just so freaking good that we need to share our voice and opinions with the world. I think we have a lot to offer in the way of nonsense. I just think
yeah,
that people need to listen to us and our opinions on any and everything from pop culture to news and I don't know, everything in between. All the dumb
yeah.
stuff, all the fun stuff, some sad, some happy, you know,
Some
some
intelligent, something that takes you high and above the human consciousness, and then
I
just bring
mean,
it back down.
that goes without saying. Everything that comes out of our mouth is going to be super intelligent and breaking the mold of reality as we know it. I
We're gonna
mean,
say something dumb, and then it's like, yeah, you know what, that tracks. That's
it's going to track everything that we say from here on out. It is verbatim a fact. We're never going to get anything wrong. These things are always going to work out. Like, it's okay. Everyone can take
well,
our word that this is going to be great.
there's three answers to everything going forward in our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's the number seven,
Yep.
science,
Yep.
and Jesus.
Yep.
Those
That's
are
all
the
you
three
need to
answers.
know. That's all
So
you
if we
need to
don't
know.
know something, those are any of those answers are correct.
Yep.
So there we go.
Yep.
Uh,
Those three will never steer you wrong ever in a million
fact.
years. So I guess as like a amuse bouche, a taste, a starter course with our pilot episode.
An aperitif.
Yes, even better. So as a little taste of what we're going to be doing in this our inaugural episode of Your Average Jays, we are going to interview each other. So we had talked going further, like maybe we'll have some guests once in a while on top of talking about our everyday stuff and whatever topics we come up with. But one of the things that we would like to do is get to know both people that we already know and people that we haven't come to know yet. So kicking it off this time, we're gonna do a kind of like interviewee segment where Jay's gonna interview me, and then I'm going to interview Jay.
Yeah. How do you want to do this? Do you want to go first? Do you want to ask me questions? Do you want to ask you questions?
I feel like I've been talking a lot, so you can go first.
Like ask the question?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll ask a question. So this would be the questions for Justin about create. This topic is going to be about creativity. So I figured we just get into what we want with everything. So let me just start with the first question. Creatively, what do you want to say with your stories or work or any possible future projects you want to do?
So in everything that I try and do creatively, just as a backstory, I know everyone has already heard about the average Jays, and we are multinational at this point, and everyone is completely aware of all the things that we've done in our life. But just as a refresher for those who might not know me, I do like to do some art, some digital drawings. I my bread and butter is pen and paper, or pencil and paper rather. So studio art, sketching, a lot of stuff like that. So and also I have some like creative writing experience and things. So not only in that, but I guess in life in general, especially with my creative outlets, my biggest thing is that I want to inspire others truly, like just to be creative in their own rights, like what the way I look at it is what I make is here today, gone tomorrow. And if I can continue or even start my own, I guess, chain reaction of creativity, that's I can die a happy man. The things in my life. There's been many things in my life, whether it be movies, pop culture, comics, anything that have inspired me to be creative. So if I can do that for at least one other person and keep that, creativity train going long past past me, I'm okay with that. That's what I want to do. I want to inspire others in everything that I do, whether it's how I carry myself outside or what I do when I put pen to paper. I want to inspire others to express themselves.
I like that. It's funny you say that because I have that same sentiment. It's one of the reasons why we're best friends.
Facts.
When the Big Bang happened, there were these two entities crossing through time,
Yep.
and then we met.
Yep.
And then we hypothetically worked for Stan Lee that one time freshman year. But
Yep. It's
it's
literally
all.
it's literally called the J effect. I've been reading into it. It's a big
Oh,
thing. Bill Nye did a paper on it.
I
It's huge.
remember adding a fact into Wikipedia. Guys, if you get the chance after this episode, go check out the Wikipedia page. If you want to add a fact, go ahead. Wikipedia won't correct you. But no, I like that because that's the same thing to share with you guys as well. I'm a writer, um, and I just want to do the same thing. I want to inspire people. Um, and it's crazy because going back to what you're saying, we haven't really actually collaborated yet, except this is our first collaboration. But when it comes to the arts, we haven't done that yet. But one day it will come. They're not ready for it yet.
No.
The human mind has to prepare a little more.
I think we'll literally split brains in half if we ever truly
Yeah, we
unleash all
don't.
of our powers. Like we have to kind
Yeah,
of do it kind of like a superhero villain. We got to give like 5% at a time, and as
yeah.
we continue to beat down the brains
So
of the
Super Saiyan
public,
one.
yeah. As we continue to break down the brains of the public, we just get stronger and be like, oh well, that was just me at a quarter of my strength. Here's half, and then
Yeah.
you know we gotta
Or
like
oh,
soften them
I
up.
was I was only using my right, but I'm actually left-handed.
Exactly. Yeah. This is
Okay.
actually my non-dominant hand. So, yep, I think that tracks. That's correct.
Okay. All right. So moving on. Um, okay. So then, continuing off the last question, what made you want to tell stories? Like, what was it?
Oh, okay. So I guess like the source, I guess that what like the big thing that inspired me. Um, I guess it's like anyone. It's not ever truly one thing, but my biggest thing for sure is Disney, 100%. Everything from movies and TV programs to Disney World itself. Like it's been such a huge part of my life ever since I was born. Um, First time I went to Disney World in Orlando, I was 2 years old, and I'm pretty sure I've been watching Disney movies ever since I was born. So Disney animation is like, nowadays it's computer animated and it's a lot of 3D models. Like the last 2D animation thing, Disney put out in full length was Princess and the Frog. So it's been a while, but Disney animation was the thing that showed me like, oh no, like this world, like we can create magic. Like magic is real. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not in the sense of like, oh, let me pull a rabbit out of my hat. It's in my in my definition of magic, it's something that you know you're creating a world, a universe, a story out of nothing and bringing it to life in such a way that it touches people. It touches the hearts and minds of people all ages, from
Yeah.
0 to 99. Everyone enjoys it, and then to realize that in a physical element like Walt Disney World, and like literally you are walking in magic where the things that you've loved forever are now physical things that you can talk and interact with. It bar none. It's just, as a whole, I think Disney itself, like the Walt Disney Company, has really shaped who I've become, like, as an adult.
That's dope. I like that. Follow up to that question. This might be the hardest question. It may not be hard. What is your favorite Disney movie outside and but not Pixar? We're gonna get to that
Okay.
later. But what's your favorite Disney movie?
So it's hard. Taking Pixar out, it kind of it
It
makes
makes
it
it.
a little easier. Like you kind of like bring it down. I was actually having a conversation with my wife Erica. I was having a conversation with that the other day about my favorite movie, and
Mm,
it's so weird because I like movies so much that I don't really have a favorite one. Like I can watch any movie that I like 50 times and
mm,
still love it and react to the jokes and the pop scares or whatever. Um,
yeah.
so like for classic Disney animations, like again, it's probably because of the time I was born and stuff, but it's a dead tie between um, Aladdin and Hercules.
Sorry.
Both those movies are pretty much like right there,
Okay.
in terms of just like it makes me feel good. It
No,
gives
I
me
can see that.
it gives me all that
And
like inspo.
yeah, I can see it too because you got Aladdin, the poor kid wanting to be rich, and then you figure out what's all inside the whole time.
Yep.
You don't need that. What's the word? Superficial aspect of
Yeah.
life and stuff like that. And then Hercules just wanting to be a hero,
Yeah.
zero to hero, basically.
It's both of them. Both of them just tell the story of like believing in yourself, right?
Hmm.
Aladdin. It's kind of weird because he kind of lies to where he gets, and then he's like at the very end he shows his true character. He's still like a good guy and like wants to do things right. He still honors like his promises and stuff. And then with Hercules, it was like he always felt like he was different, and then he was going for the superficial reasons, and then he realized like no, like I gotta be more than that. And it's they're both inspiring in their own ways. So yeah, those are things that I kept forever. Since I was a little kid.
And then me knowing you, that does show, especially knowing you for so long. Um, with the pandemic, uh, we were on lockdown, and you and your wife Erica even decided to go and make um, another Instagram account to work on your project. I know Erica is still trying to figure out her other IG account, what it's supposed to be, but you have your other page, kind of throw that in there, called the Cautious Rebel. Um, what are you? What is that page for?
So unfortunately, I've kind of taken like a hiatus for a month or two off of it, but it's to kind of showcase my art again. It's kind of something that makes me want to like create, right? Because I feel like this, maybe not need, but I feel almost like I have this account for this, so I need to fill it with things, you know.
Mm.
So I need to fill it with content, and like I said, I've taken like 2 months off, so whatever. But yeah, it's to just showcase my art, and I'm trying to also, not only is it kind of like to show other people like, hey, this is what I'm doing, because when you're a creative, you know, in my experiences, when you're a creative, you don't want to keep things to yourself. You make things for the enjoyment of others, right? And it's
Yeah.
maybe it's a stroking of the ego type deal of like you want to hear how good it is, but I think it's more so like, again, going back to that inspiration thing, like I want to show people what I can do, and
Mm.
maybe they could be like, oh snap, like I could do this too, or oh, this is like something I did, or even for feedback sometimes be like, oh, hey, so you did this, maybe you could benefit from this. Like, it's just kind of growing my own creativity while growing the creativity of others, and it also kind of works as like a really nice kind of like a timeline or growth chart type deal.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I've been drawing for ever since high school, so I've definitely I have some of those pieces left over. Like I've grown even like from then to now. It's not like I've been drawing something new every day, but I try and keep it alive, and I've grown tremendously since then. And so now finally having one spot to kind of put everything in and hopefully see myself incrementally grow with each piece, and over the weeks, months, years. I think that's also a good reason like why I made that.
Okay. I like that. I had a question for you, but it seems like you answered that before with the inspiring others. I kind of want to throw a curveball.
Hmm.
Um, so you can say that your art is like you said, it's like a timeline. This is kind of like a two-part question. You see yourself. It from what it sounds like, it's like a visual journal. Whenever you draw, can you always look back and be like, oh, you can remember the time, that point in time, and figure like, let's say it's a picture of like, let's say Hercules. We see a picture of Hercules that you drew. Would you remember that moment, and do you learn anything from that? Like, do you be like, oh, I learned how to do this stroke well, or this,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think when it comes to like visual arts, and I mean even when it comes like storytelling, like you with your projects and like your books and your comics and the things that you've designed and brought to fruition, you look back on it and you can kind of see like where you were in that time and space, right? Like my original things, like when I first started drawing in art class back sophomore year of high school, it's every single thing there is comic books. Every single thing is taken from a comic book panel. It's also because my teacher, who's my old art teacher, who's probably the biggest influence that I had on becoming an artist. He was a huge comic nerd, so
mm,
he had bins and bins of like throwaway comics that he wasn't gonna use or anything like that. So I gravitated towards that, and because it was stuff that I liked, so I just used comics as reference, and I drew Spider-Man panels and Wolverine stuff and Watchmen stuff. Like I was drawing only comics, and I remember that time being so integral to becoming like I don't like calling myself an artist. I don't think it's a thing. I like calling myself a creative person, and I like to make art. So becoming that
yeah,
creative, like
it's
this was a
common.
big stepping stone for me. Like
Yeah,
seeing things that I liked and being able to kind of like mirror it or mimic it and make it like it was never like one to one perfect from the reference, but it was like, oh, I drew that, and then sometimes I'd look at it and be like, I drew that. Like that came
yeah,
out of me, you know?
yeah,
So it was such a big deal because it also helped foster the things that I liked.
mm,
It was a very safe space. It was good for me to express, what I liked in that medium because it helped me, I don't know, just kind of be okay with the fact that I loved these pop culture things, and it helped grow that love for it. Um, so yeah, I can look back at each piece of art and just remember, what I was feeling when I did that, or I could look at it and be like, oh, I remember like I messed up here and I hated that, or I could look at something. One thing that comes to mind is I remember drawing a Spider-Man panel, and it was I don't remember the comic, but he's freaking out. He gets super mad and he flips a car, and he's basically like he feels like he's getting taken for granted as Spider-Man, so he doesn't want to do it anymore. And I remember like I sat down in my room on my desk for 6 hours straight, and I cranked it out. I drew it and colored it, and that's just like I can remember exactly what I was doing. It was one of the points in time where like I was in sophomore year of high school. I had a desk in my room, and I spent an entire, I think, Saturday. I just sat down, zoned out with I think some music, and I just drew. And then when I finally got up, I was super dehydrated. My fingers hurt. Like you get locked into that zone where you don't want to do anything else except finish this thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's one thing I can, the different stuff that I draw, like I can always kind of go back to and see and be like, I was at this point in my life, or I was feeling like this. That's why I did this. You know.
Okay. No, yeah, I like that. When you you took me through a tale, it kind of reminds me of like you. It's funny. We're both we're our own protagonists and writers or creators. Um, it sounds like a monomyth story because you had the older mentor, and then you're becoming a hero. And with our lives right now, and speaking in anime terms, we're in our time skip, and then we're gonna become like that post time skip, and we're gonna do our thing, and we're still in that right now. To me, right now, this feels like the hyperbolic time chamber.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, that's like we're
Literally,
we're here to hone our craft and talk and grow. I think as
yeah,
creatives, so that we look back on it and be like, yo, I remember when we started this journey here at this point.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it could always be a super successful podcast, and people will never know.
Oh
But
yeah, I
they
think
don't
we're already
know.
super successful.
It's yeah, exactly. It's very meta because when they see this, they're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm just
Yep.
gonna." It's
This is
literally
we are incredibly successful right now. Everyone
it's
knows
so
about us.
crazy. Like I'm pretty sure we're variants
Yep,
right now.
it's exactly what it
We're
is.
just messing everything up.
Yep,
They're not
we've
with
we've
it.
come in. We were messing with the timelines, and we're here to just destroy all preconceived notions of what's cool and bring it to a bigger pinnacle than before.
Or we're just always the pinnacle.
Or yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe just
Yeah.
anything we touch, we are the pinnacle, and we don't even notice it because we're just that cool.
The
Like
the
I
J
think that tracks.
the
I feel
Jace
that.
touch.
The what?
You know how it's like the Midas touch, but the Jace
Mm,
touch.
the J touch. I get that.
It's more modern.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes but I was gonna say when you mentioned when you were drawing, you said your hand was hurting and you were you were dehydrated. I then pictured like a zombie, like you're done. But it reminds me, if you remember that movie, you saw Soul, right? The Pixar
Yeah,
movie. So it's like they call it the zone. He's like, yo,
yeah.
when athletes get in the zone, like I was like, oh, so you were like in the zone,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
for
know that
sure.
feeling too. I know that feeling, and I'm sure like whenever we get our whatever artist or that's on here, artist in its all its term, whoever comes on this show will always describe that. And I don't know. I want to call it something. I want to call it the eureka moment or
Yeah.
in the zone. Maybe have a freaking like soundbite called "Into the Zone," "Out of the Zone." Like I don't know. That's just what popped up in me. But nah, yeah, I feel that too. I felt that too. I know a lot of people have felt that. But yeah, it's you describing that. Like not saying that you were never an artist or you're a creator. You're an artist as the word you know by definition.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes you can break it down. You're an artist as an illustrator because I'm not an illustrator, but I am an artist. I can draw great stick figures. Like I can do it.
You see, and people say that stuff, and like I can't draw a stick figure to save my life. Just
Crazy.
now, like now, within the last couple months, like I'm really, really trying to draw stick figures because like when you're creating your own art piece, right? You're supposed
Yeah,
to break it down, right, to like
yeah,
shapes and lines and stuff. And I hated doing that all the time. And because of that, it made me, fall into this really bad like perfectionist complex
mm-hmm.
where like I wanted everything to be perfect right from the first like pencil stroke, and it's like that's not how it goes. You have to
Yeah.
build it. So now is when I'm starting to try and learn stick figures and like and poses and stuff.
No, yeah, like, it's not that I know what he did or what she did. God just was like, yo, when he took time with each person, he was like, let me just throw a little bit of this. Oh, you know what? Let me just take that out. He just threw a little bit like, oh, that's too much sexy. I'm gonna just throw more into it. Like, we're all our own guides and we just gotta do it. And perfection, we can never reach perfection, we can only strive for it. That's
Yeah.
all it is. And then
I
that's
think
when
it's we have a responsibility to us, the universe, our higher power, our God. I think we have a responsibility while we're alive to share our passions with others, to share
yeah,
what we can create. Because unfortunately, like not even just now, but all the time, the world is such a destructive place, and I think we're getting bombarded a lot with different views and different things that are going on. So I'm more than happy to share something good, you know, and I know you are too.
No, yeah, for sure. I agree with that. 100%.
All right, so let's switch this up. And
I
now,
wish those camera just did. When we get the higher budget, when our
oh
future
yeah,
self comes back,
we'll have two teams of cameramen to actually
we'll,
record us, and then they can flip, and we can fix it all
yeah,
post
we'll,
stream,
we'll, we'll
and
pay.
we'll add the effects of like a real life camera switching around for us.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I agree. Okay, so
All
now
right.
to switch gears, Jay, Jeremy
Yeah.
or Francois, I will be interviewing you for the next couple minutes here. So, I guess kind of mirroring what you had said before, um, like when you asked me, why is it important for you to tell your stories? Like, why, like, what is in you that tells you you need to say this to, the world?
To answer that very quickly, peace. Um, it's funny because back in college, you remember Jamal. He asked me a question because there was this thing going around in Iona where you would write like a thing, like a paper, and you would give it to someone you admire. And I think he gave that to me, and I answered the question, and that was the first thing that came out of my mind. Because it's just like, we said it before, the world is in a weird, destructive place, and I just want, like, we're not gonna solve peace tonight or tomorrow or even in my lifetime, but I would like to jump on that train that guides the world towards peace. I hope one of my works or most of my works, is a part of that, and that's why I want to do it. Um, Funny enough, like, um, my favorite anime, One Piece, all day, is my thing. The author Ichiro Oda, all he has this idea where all the characters have one thing in mind. Like, for example, Luffy, he likes meats and eating. Zoro, he loves steel, working out and drinking. Like, that's his thing. But then he puts himself on the list and he says his piece as well. Like, that makes me think of the collective conscience, like someone that I admire. Even like Stan Lee, he always strikes me. We always have that same mindset. And not to toot my own horn or even stroke the ego, but like I feel like I'm one of the next generation, like fucking what's his name, Midoriya, becoming the next hero, the next writer to like bring that in the train, bring that baggage.
No, I
And
totally believe that.
yeah, it's weird because then you got like we had the basically we're in a civil war in America, and I wish we can, I guess, get together. I don't know. It's gonna take time, and I just want to be a part of it.
No, I get
Um,
that. Yeah.
and a lot of that is with ignorance. But if I can just tell stories and people enjoy it, like a black dude writing Ninja Turtles, like never seen that. There's not a lot of black writers when it comes to comic books. There's only a few, and I don't can name one off the top of my head. That's
Yeah.
Tanahashi Coates, and that's it. Um, but yeah, to
So
answer
you
that
could say
question,
that I guess it's the same for you too. Like
and yeah, and I want to inspire
you want
people.
to
Yeah,
inspire like that peace, that hope for other people. No,
exactly.
I like that a lot because, like I said before, I think this world is we need it. We need that. And in my eyes, you already know you're the next Stanley. I think that your stories are gonna absolutely rock
Let
this
me
world.
let me toot your own horn, and you're gonna be the next Jack Kirby,
I
Jack the
mean,
King Kirby,
that'd be dope.
and then
But
we can
yeah,
put together a nation, and then split the world in half.
yep. So it's I think what you do is great, and I mean the purity behind what your goal is. I think rings true, and like I think other people can see that also, and I think that's why you've gotten to where you are now. Not that you're not incredibly talented, but I think people gravitate towards you because of how genuine you are. You are a genuine human being, and I think you just want the best for everyone that you meet, and that's not a common trait. That's something that is a legitimate gift from God. You are here. You are a peacekeeper, and I think your your goal, wanting peace and wanting to be that hope for other people. I think that is gonna get you really far.
Yeah, yeah. I really, and it's crazy. I think about it all the time. Like I published like my comic, my brother Teddy, and I'm like, yo, if I like disappeared from this planet, at least I left something behind.
Yeah.
And I always realize like, what if like, let's say there's just that heaven, can I look down and see if my work is plotting a course? Like I would love to just see what I created will inspire someone else to be like, yes, I'm following the will, like in One Piece, like the will of D. Like,
Yeah.
am I following that and bringing that forward? But it's a weird existential, weird high thought process of like, where am I going to be in the next life?
Yeah.
Unless we're just part of a tree or whatever,
Hmm.
maybe. So we'll figure it out.
No, I get
My
that.
soul will figure it out.
Hmm. Okay.
But yeah,
So I guess like going off of My Brother Teddy, which is a comic book that you wrote and self-published. Um,
yeah.
how do you come up with those ideas? Like how do you like what happens to you to make you kind of like bring forth that entire story? For those that don't know, My Brother Teddy, written and created by the beautiful uh, Jeremy Francois, was a comic that was adapted from. Didn't you write it out as a story? Right? Correct. First time.
I saw an image and
And you,
from
yeah.
back in college
Mm-hmm.
of like a small little teddy bear protecting this kid who's sleeping from a monster, and I was like, oh, there's a story there,
Okay.
and that kind of brings me to answer the question like, how do I come up with that story? So it stayed in my brain for quite some time, and then and it was until recently, and then not to like be all like ooh about it, but you moved, and I guess that inspired like because I'm not really good with emotions, but when like I was like, oh, I gotta put this down on paper. I was like, oh, my best friend moved not that far, but to Florida. Like you freaking moved to Europe type shit. Um, but yeah, and then I was like, yeah, I gotta put this down. Um, and then I just started writing it. And then at the time, because I'm a poor black man in America, I don't have the funds to create the whole story that I wanted to tell. So I was like, let me truncate this story and keep it simple. And it was just, in a sense, it's kind of like a picture book, but I didn't want it to be a picture book. And that's when I came up with the idea. I was just like, yo, let's add music. Let's add a soundtrack to this to just give it a more emotional weight. And a lot of people dug that. And people will never know. Hopefully, one day, I was the first to do that before DC Comics because they did that with their DC Metal with their thing, but obviously they were ripping off me. So it's weird. But just get back to the question. Every time I see a little thing, an idea that could be interesting, it stays in my head. And the person who said it best was Stephen King. He's like, if that idea is still with you 3 years, 3 to 4 years later, there's something there. Um, and he says like, where any writer, any creator is an architect, or not an architect, an archaeologist. You find a piece of a fossil, maybe the foot of a toe of a dinosaur. That's the story. Now you got to dig it out. That's when I read that line, I was like, yes, that's exactly it. That's how it feels. You start digging the story out. So when I was like down in the dumps back in 2017, that summer, my mom was sick. I didn't know how to like. I felt defeated because I was just like, oh, I'm not gonna make it in life. I'm like I said, I'm just a black man in America who's poor, who's gonna listen to me, kind of a thing. And then I watched Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire, and then all of this. I needed a hero within me, and then it just started creating. And then I was like, I thought the name Napoleon came up, and one of his like quotes was "getting back up after you fall." And then I just started writing things down, and then I wrote issue 1, and I was like, oh, there's something here. And then issue 2, and then when I'm on the train on to work, I'll just write out notes and just plot out the chapter. And literally, it was the monolith story in 6 issues. So to me, like that was my entire dinosaur. I found the tailbone or the toe bone, and I digged it out. And I think that's the way to go. If you figure out a story, dig it out. And also, like, there are people out there that just want to tell stories. They're like, oh, I can't write, but I just have this story. Like, explore it. Don't say it's a cool, because a lot of people can have cool ideas. Tell me the story. Go through it. And but now just taking off Stephen King's works, that's how I figure it out. I find the nugget, I find the idea, and I expand on it. So that's why I don't go hard trying to create new things because I have ideas sitting in my hard drive. I don't want
Mm.
to spread myself thin when it comes to stories. I just want to
Yeah.
stay with it, nurture it, and hopefully it becomes something.
No, that's really cool. That reminds me of like that famous quote of like I forgot who said it,
Mm.
and but it's when you look at a slab of marble,
Mm.
the sculpture is
Yeah,
in there, and it's just your job to kind of dig it out. Like you
yeah,
have to remove the pieces that aren't the sculpture, and then it's there.
yeah,
So it's very much so of like if you have that idea, explore it, take your time, dig it out, and then you got a full thing. And I think your whole mantra of just like exploring that idea. I think that whole thing of like the first step is you just got to do it,
yeah,
right? You just got to commit and just write down as much as possible. If it takes you 2-3 years to flesh it out, but taking that first step is so important to sharing your creativity.
yeah. It's like it's what they tell you in school. Like you don't know how to start writing, just start writing. It'll become something.
Yeah.
You can always go back and fix it.
Yeah.
Um, Literally the scene in Man of Steel when he's about to fly. You hear the music. That's literally taking the first step and creating whatever it is.
Yeah.
And like I was so happy because it only took me like I want to say 2 to 3 months to write all 6 issues, obviously. And then I went to writing workshops, so I wasn't like telling my friends about it because I needed more of a higher. Like my friends' opinions mattered, but I was like I needed higher editing uh, uh, aficionados that were like, oh, this needs work and this character shouldn't be talking this way, like just stuff like that. So that helped me perfect it even more. That's why I'm like going like, and I'm at the time I didn't have the money to even produce it. So like now, not that I have money now, but I have more capital to be like throw some money into it so I can finally get it built. And honestly, if this, the population of New York gets to see it instead of the rest of the world, I'm happy with
Yeah.
it. So
And this is you're talking about your
the
other your other comic Napoleon from the Machine, right?
that one I want to actually get published by a publisher
Yeah.
instead of me doing it.
I
The
think
first one was me.
it has the legs too. It's a good enough story with a lot of elements to catch the eye of someone, for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
So, going into stories, um, what was the very first story that you fell in love with?
Just like you, it could have been anything, but to give a concrete answer is One Piece.
Okay.
And I'm always gonna go back to that because it's just like it's such a unique thing. Like you can say that about anything, but if you look at the fandom of One Piece, someone got into it, and it's like how whoever fell in love with Dragon Ball. Like to me, Dragon Ball to me, there's a niche. Like for me, it's just always Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z and onward. Like Dragon Ball Z is cool, but One Piece was just so consistent and just kept going, and then you just get to follow these characters. Um, for those who know, when you got to the Alabasta arc, like that to me was like everything. That was One Piece to me. Um, but to go back, like I fell in love with anything. Like stories was just always there. Like the Spider-Man, the Batman, the Superman, Barney. Just taking it even back, like Sesame Street. But growing up, I think One Piece is the one thing that locked me in. But I
Mhm.
didn't know I wanted to write at the time. I thought stories were cool. Um,
Oh, so that was the first thing that you just
like
remember liking story elements
yeah,
from.
like story elements. Yeah, yeah. And this
So
was like yeah,
do you have something that actually made you want to write? Do you have like that kind of influence? Like,
not
can you recall?
not no, not any time after that because it probably like I think that's what flipped the switch in my brain, but I haven't written anything
Mm.
at the time because this was I was like 12, 11, 12, yeah, 11 or 12, and I wasn't writing it in my young brain. I was like, oh, once I graduate college, I'll sit in an office. Like I didn't know how the world was gonna work. I just thought I'd be sitting in an office watching anime by myself in my 2 bedroom apartment. Like I didn't know we were gonna get thrown with debt and all that. I didn't know what debt was. Um, but I didn't. I can only say what fostered my creativity was in high school.
Mm.
But I can tell you like a precursor to that. Let me take it back. So back in 6th grade, so I failed twice, guys. For those who are listening, I not failed twice. I failed once. I got left back in 6th grade. my first sixth grade. You knew this, Justin. Don't get
No, I
surprised.
did not. You got left back?
Yeah, I got left back. So I was my first sixth grade. Um, I had to tell like we had to tell some story. I forget how it was, but and my old Dell computer with dial-up. I remember typing away because we had to do an assignment, and this was one I was interested in because like to me, homework was too much for me. So I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
but this is the one like every time our my teacher was like providing us with like assignments, the art stuff, the cool projects were the cool things that interested me. So then I had to write out a script, and I was part of a group. So I wrote a script, basic, nothing like the final draft will give you. And I looked at it and I was like, this is a script, like in my head. And I was like, I wrote a little movie. I remember that being like the ember, and then fast forward, the one piece is what struck, the lightning that hit that ember and made it more. But I think high school and forward fostered everything. I had my own mentor, which he probably didn't know he was my mentor. He really liked Star Wars and called me Jar Jar. And then someone's like, "Yo, that's such an insult." I'm like, "Hey, if you love Star Wars and the fact that he nicknamed me Jar Jar, I don't care." And I saw him as a mentor, and then his class was cool. It was just very creative. And then I remember I still have that binder. We had to make a binder. Anytime we told a story, we put the sheets in there. And I told I called it an epic. It's one poem, but it's like a small one-page poem. And I called it an epic. It was just my high school life in just a grand scheme. One day I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna just post it online, and it's just really cool. It's just me and my lunch group of friends going through high school, but it's like an epic. We're just fighting throughout New York City, and like Yankee Stadium was like the hub or whatever. It was weird, but
That's
cool.
cool.
I
I mean,
liked
that
it.
sounds pretty sick.
I may turn that into something. I don't know. But yeah, like high school was my thing, and then I think when I got to college, my script writing class, and that's when I wrote that first piece. And I was like, another. And this it's funny enough, coming full circle. I wrote another movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, this is gonna be my baby. So one day, like I still haven't finished it, but I finished the outline.
Mm-hmm.
And like I remember the kids in class or my colleagues or my classmates were just like, "Yo, like I want to see that movie," and I was like, "Oh snap!" It hyping me up. Yo, you see my head doing this? I was like, and even when the professor was like, "Yo, I can hear their accents and their like one of my like villain characters had like a twang, like a southern accent." I was like, because I'm hearing the voices. It just comes out.
Yeah.
I was just mad gas. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna be a writer. So that's when I made that decision. I was like,
Okay. So you
yeah,
had so that I would take that as like your pinpoint right there.
yes,
Like when you got that feedback and like it was a positive thing and people were seeing and hearing the things that you wanted them to, that's
mm,
what you were like, oh snap, like I can do this. I want to do this. You
yes,
know. I think we all have that kind of like that point in our lives, the creatives in this world. I mean, I think everyone's a creative in their own right. I think everyone's
yes,
a nerd about something.
yes,
Um, so, everyone has that point in their life where they're kind of like, you know, I can do that. I can
mm,
do that. I'm going to try at it because I like the way it makes me feel, but more
mm,
importantly, I like the way it makes other people feel. And I think
yes,
that's what really separates like the doers in this world from the donors, right?
yeah,
The people that just kind of float through life,
yeah,
because when you talk about people that produce or that help out or do something with passion, they
yeah,
all can go back and be like, no, I've wanted to do this ever since XYZ. And whenever you hear that marker, that point where they had that, the light switch went on, it's,
um,
not only is it, how it made you feel, but it's always the reaction that you received.
yeah,
It's I harken it back to like when I was a kid, and I used to play with Legos and stuff a lot, and my family. I was the oldest. I was an only child in my entire family. I'm starting across aunts and
yeah,
uncles and all that stuff for like 5 years, and then all my little cousins started popping up. But ever since I was a kid, I was always very like interactive with stuff. I liked building Legos. I liked coloring and things like that. So I was always kind of hyped up, especially by like my grandparents and stuff. Like, oh, you can do this that, and I'd always be like, no, 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 no. Like it's
mhm,
normal stuff. And then I got to high school, Formative years. I feel like everyone can go back to high school and see when they
Yeah.
found their thing. Um, my old art teacher again. There was a freshman showcase at the end of the year, and it just showed our art. All the art bad and the crappy stuff, and then
Yeah.
the less crappy stuff that the good kids put out. And when I was going into it was in our big auditorium. So we were going into the auditorium. My art teacher actually, he said what's up to me. Me and him were very like casual, good friends, and my parents were there. And he actually made it a point to be like, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but your son is very gifted in color." He was like, "He has something there." And that moment, I was like, "Oh snap! I actually have something," because
Mm,
he thought about it enough to be like, not like, oh, he's good at art or whatever.
yeah.
He picked out something that I even think that I think color is something that I like in art just because I think it
Yeah.
matches my personality. Like I like to have color in things. So when he said that, it stuck with me, and I was like, oh snap, maybe I could do this. And then he asked me to be a part of the AP art students, and then it grew from there. And then in college, when I took my one and only art class, um, the teacher told me, she was like, well, you're very clearly gifted. Like you don't need to be in this introductory course. And I was like, well, I'm a business major, so I can't really
You're a
do
ringer.
anything else.
So
So
yeah.
she
Got
was
a
like,
ringer.
yeah, she was like, you're very clearly gifted. Like, I don't know why you're in here. And I was like, well, I just need to do it. I need to do something,
Oh, for sure.
with this.
Especially
With
when you're wearing. Yeah.
exactly. And she said the same thing about color. She told me like straight up. She was like, I think you're very talented with this. And I've just kept that, and it's when you can get feedback, honest, true feedback on your work, and knowing people that like it and that are deemed knowledgeable in the subject, and they tell you, hey, this is really good. That kind of gives you that like the coal to the fire. It makes you kind of want
Mhm.
to keep going and be like, yeah, 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 and I could do
It's
better and I
funny.
could show you more.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because you had positive reinforcements from like I guess at the time, even college, as from adults. Like I can tell you how many times because specifically I'm a writer. I remember one dude, he was a cop, and I don't. He was like a. It was like a friend of a friend of a friend kind of a thing. And we were just sitting because it was like a little housewarming party kind of a thing. And I think this was before college, like right before college or in high school. I was sitting there. I remember talking to him, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm into stories, blah blah." I was thinking I might be a writer because this is when I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was either computer science or I didn't know, and I thought computer science because that's what was in. Um, but then he looked at me. He's just like, writers don't make money. And I looked at him, and I didn't take offense. I was just like, you're an adult. But then you're just gonna tell me something I might be interested. So I've gotten people that told me like, writers don't make money, blah blah blah, and they do. It's just dependent to keep going. And reading Stephen King's On Writing, he's gotten so many like passes, like so many declines. And I'm like, I gotta go through that before I get that one hit wonder.
you know
I've
i
already gotten a few.
i think people kind of, and this is everyone, is like a human trait. I think they
Yeah.
like to kind of stick to like the realism factor of it all,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because for every super successful creative person, there's a million others that died without anyone knowing your name or making a penny.
Yeah.
So I think people as a, it's kind of like a defensive thing in like your favor. They're trying to be like, hey, like this is risky, so don't do that.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I've got.
I got that too from people and family members and stuff being like, my original thing is I wanted to go for graphic design.
Yeah.
And then, it was kind of between graphic design and just art in general, like going for an art degree.
Yeah.
And, I got talked out of it by multiple people,
Yeah.
and it was kind of just that factor of, well, it's not going to make money, or, that's not a good pursuit. Like, don't do that. Like, you can't do that. You need to do something that makes money, which
Yeah.
inevitably landed me in marketing,
Yeah.
and it's my
Which is close
choice.
to what it's close to what you want too, because you can always.
There are creative elements in it, and I can always expand on it. And nowadays I'm kind of seeing myself like I would like to help out small businesses and kind of like rebrand them and help them go. So like there's things that I can use with my education to accomplish the goals that I want.
Yeah, and it so to just harken back to what I was saying, to me that was my coal in the fire. That's correct, right? I said that correctly. That was my coal in the fire because it was just
Yes.
like, yeah, it kind of lit the fuse. Because honestly, what mattered most, we can always say our parents. It's what mattered most to our parents. Because my dad, he always thought I would be doing something with my hands, like engineer wise or something like that. And I was like, yeah, but like I know myself. Like I know that takes a lot of patience. Like even computer science, like I remember completing my first assignment. I was like, wow, this took so much out of me. But then to me, not saying writing comes easy, but it's something I can do and then nurture. But one thing I like about my parents, especially my dad, he's like, yo, do what you want to do. And and I get it. We all have to be real at some point. Because look, if I wasn't working where I'm working at now, I would not I probably wouldn't be able to write my stuff. I wouldn't be able to do it. So luckily, I'm at a place where I can be at my job, and then after, like literally after work, I don't bring homework with me. I can just come back, sit on my computer, type something, or
Yeah.
watch TV and get ideas. Um, so I'm in a good place. So I'm just like, I can do my thing and share that with the world. Um, but yeah, that's me creating stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think this was a fantastic first episode. I think this was a great way to get people in on like who we are and like what we're about. Um, Obviously, there's more average J's to come. We want to continue this trend of finding out about creativity and exploring that, as well as going into the ongoings of every day.
Yeah,
So I think
connecting
that's
that
a
with life.
what's up.
Connecting that with life.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, we always want to connect it with life and what's going on. So I think this is a great place to kind of sign off and let everyone know that again, this was the inaugural Average J's podcast, and we're gonna keep pumping these out as often as we can, and sharing creativity as well as fun stories and other cool stuff.
Some random anecdotes. Wow,
Yep.
this loved right there. Edit that out. Chop it up.
We'll edit. We'll fix it in post.
Yeah,
That'll
we'll
be
have
our
our people do it.
catchphrase. Just we'll fix everything in post.
Yeah, yeah. Let's fix everything.
All right. So signing off for the first time. This is Jay,
And this is Jay.
and we'll see you
Shall we
guys
say our
next
names?
time. We'll see you guys next time.
All right, deuces.